music stuff. So
Yeah, so you get it.
yeah, for sure.
And
Woody
Judas is
Fincham is
bigger
in the
than the
house.
rest of us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that one, Judah, you got your mic on? Tell them what we had to do to get that for production-wise for the show. What did we have to up the, we had to do some customization, right?
To get what?
To handle what was going on with the show. How do we upgrade that Mac?
I mean, we added a couple memory sticks, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
Spent a ton of money is what it was.
I mean, it's a fair amount of money here. Guys, we're going to rock and roll on the show. Woody Fincham is in the house, one of the smartest guys we know. This guy knows data like the Pope knows holy water. He literally specializes in data. Keith Smith is back in the house. Real Talk with Keith Smith, and Keith Smith's here.
Look at that, huh?
Very excited about that.
Look at that.
After a few days where he was rubbing shoulders with the who's who of real estate in D.C., I believe.
I was in D.C. speaking at the CEO's leadership conference, and one of my famous sayings is that if I think I'm the smartest person in the room, I need to find another room. I clearly was not even close to being the smartest person in this room, so it was pretty awesome to sit side by side with the CEOs. And future shows coming up, there's some stuff that's going to be hitting the real estate world that is going to impact everything that we do in the next 12 months. But that's a little bit of a tease. But today's all about Woody, man, and data. I'm excited to see that we're gonna provide some stuff that I don't think anybody's gonna be able to has ever seen before. Is the way we're going to present this data. So,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if anyone's ever read any of my appraisal reports, you've seen it. But
you're supposed to read them.
Oh yeah, yeah. Everybody just goes straight to the number.
I don't think I've ever actually. Only time I've ever read one is when somebody said it was screwed up. But other than that, it's like, okay, did my number match? I'm good. Let's go.
Johnny Ornalis, thank you for sharing the show. Lonnie Murray, hello. Kyle Irvin, hello. The mortgage broker, Dean Russell, I think you're going to love this show. Andre Xavier, hello. Scott Thorpe, the commercial broker, hello. Kevin Yancey, hello. Jesse Rutherford, hello. Tom Stargell, the Golden Apple Award winner, hello. Tripp Stewart, the real estate investor, hello. Brittany Gray of Stanley Martin, hello. Janet, I always mess up your last. Janet Compentello, hello. Welcome to the program. Thank you kindly for watching. Guys, give the show a like and a share. Seth Liskey, the real estate investor and financial advisor watching the program. Seth, how many buildings you own in downtown Stanton? Let me know. Roger Voisinay, hello. Kathy Carpenter, hello. Catherine Lochner, hello. Sandra McDonald, hello. Welcome to the program. All right, J-Dubs, we can rock and roll when you're ready, my friend.
Quiet on the set.
Good Friday morning, guys. I'm Jerry Miller, and this is Real Talk with Keith Smith. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in downtown Charlottesville on the I Love Seville Network, a show presented by Yes Realty Partners, and I want to give a good plug for Fincham & Associates, a brand and a company that you can count on. Fincham & Associates. Woody and his team are honest, reliable, experienced, sophisticated. They do what they say. They know the market inside and out. And they understand, frankly speaking, the business more than anyone I've met when it comes to appraising homes, real estate, land, you name it. He gets it. Judah Wickhauer is our director. If we can go to the studio camera and welcome the pros. Keith Smith is back. Woody Fincham is looking great. Gentlemen, good Friday morning.
Good Friday morning. It feels more like a Monday to me, but good Friday morning to everybody. Woody, thank you for being here, man. I've been looking forward to the show for a while because you're going to talk about some things that we normally don't talk about, right? And valuations that we normally don't talk about, like square footage and some other different valuations that are going to help maybe the real estate agents that are watching it and the folks that are trying to buy and sell to kind of get a better bead on where the market is. So what you were kind enough to do was to put together an analysis for us, and Judah has some slides, and we'll buzz through them a little bit on it. But I wanted to kind of turn it over to you and let you jump in where you want to start, and then I've got a bunch of questions I wrote down that I want to throw your way.
Sure. Thanks for having me on today, guys. And as always, it's fun to get in here and mix it up a little bit about what's going on in the local market. We've seen a lot going on the last couple of weeks, a lot of investors, we're working with a lot of investors right now that are buying residential in anticipation of this upzoning. So we're doing a tremendous amount of market analysis in that vein currently. So I'm happy to get in here and share some of this stuff. I think this and some more to come, I think. If everybody gets an appetite for it, we'll be happy to do some more in-depth stuff as well.
So Woody and I and Jerry and the I Love Charlottesville Network and Real Talk with Keith Smith are working on trying to produce more of a in-depth analysis that folks can take a look at and frankly kind of beat everybody else to the market with data. So let's talk about medium. Everybody wants to go into medium sales price, and I think that's slide number 1, Judah. So if you want to start there and kind of talk about, you took a look at what happened as of the 1st of this month of September.
Right. So everything that's in this chart, it's a little different than how you normally present it because you normally do quarters. The real fiscal information that most economists use, we actually do a 90-day back all the way for a year. So this starts on September 1st and goes back from there. So it's a little bit different than what we normally present on the show. But the median sales price here, which is slide 1, this is basically just what the median price is overall for the car footprint. And that's going to include Louisa, Greene County, Flaviana, Charlottesville, and Nelson.
And is that single family only?
Single family only, no new construction. This is a good metric to use. A lot of folks use this, but it can be a little deceiving sometimes because you're only looking at sales prices. You're not actually looking at anything where you're actually comparing anything. And one of the metrics that we really like to use is the price per square foot methodology.
Love the price per square foot methodology.
Yeah.
We were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
Why is that so underrated?
Well, it gets overused a lot by a lot of agents because when you're dealing with homogeneous property where everything is really relatively similar, like Forest Lakes, price per square foot is actually a really good way to do it. But when you get into markets like, say, Farmington or Glenmore, where a lot of things are really just custom and different, it can be difficult to deal with because you've got things, and it doesn't consider a lot of the individual characteristics within the home. It's just an overall. And on acreage land, too, it can really skew because if you've got 25 acres, price per square foot, right out the window. The only way to do acreage is to actually do what we call is the residual price per square foot, which is pull the land value out of each of the sales.
Just do the home.
Yeah, and just do the home. But price per square foot is a great metric overall because what it does is it's looking at something that's comparing one unit of one metric to what's going on in the market, and sometimes it can be a telltale. What actually got Keith and I talking about this a couple of months ago, and sitting on the board at CAR, I'm not attacking CAR whatsoever. I think CAR does a great job with their market report, but they use median sales price, and they indicated that Greene was actually regressing. Greene is not regressing. If you go in and do a metric on price per square foot, it's actually increasing, and it's continued to do so. There's been some pauses occasionally in the market in Greene, but we're not seeing anything that I would call negative in that market whatsoever.
Well, for the real estate agents and the buyers and the sellers, just try to buy something there, and that kind of tells you what it is. But you mentioned something about price per square foot, particularly in this market.
Yes.
And you used an analogy on that, why square footage is more important now than maybe median sales price. It's a specific type of market that you think we're in. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's a better metric just because you're using a comparable unit rather than just an absolute number, which is the sales price. The absolute sales prices can skew greatly because of the variances in price. Median, of course, is a better metric than average or mean, but price per square foot's better because it's going to lump things together the way in a more comparable manner rather than just looking at a median sales price. You're looking at almost trying to drink from a fire hose with the data because it just kind of skews it together.
Great. So that's slide number 2, Judah. So these numbers we're looking at, that excludes new construction, right?
Yeah, there's no new construction in any of this.
Great. So we're single-family detached, no new construction.
Right.
The car footprint, which is Charlottesville, Albemarle, Flaviana, Nelson, Greene, and Louisa, if I got it right, on that end of it. So we're looking at a medium square foot price of $230. I love you love your data guys. 0.01.
I love that. I noticed that as well.
So again, the real estate agents that are watching this and trying to help valuation, because this is a phone call I get all the time.
Sure.
And I refer folks out to you from other real estate agents. Hey, I'm having a trouble valuating this piece of property. Can you help me?
Right.
And these are from different brokerages. So tell me why they
I've
should.
actually had a broker tell me that price per square foot should be discounted.
Well, it's funny you should say that.
And I pushed back, and I mean, I'm not going to say who, but I pushed back to that broker. I was like, how do you discount a metric that can be used to essentially scale across many different types of housing?
I've pushed back on you numerous times on that.
It's a
right?
tool, right? So it's
And-
sometimes it's a hammer that you're trying to put a screw in with. It's not appropriate in every situation, but it can be a relative conversation as well.
But you used a specific term about the market that we're in, right? And the way this particular market is moving and the speed that it is moving.
Yes.
That maybe square footage is a better way to look at it. And from my thinking, because I'm old, and I was thinking old way of looking at this, I kind of discounted square footage, and I always was taking a look at the price. So why is the shift, and is the shift going to go back?
We are in a transitioning market right now.
That's the term I was trying to
I just
get.
got done with a study. I did a desktop analysis for an agent who's trying to price a property out in River Oaks, and we're finishing that up for them today.
Willow Oaks?
River Oaks,
River Oaks,
out in
okay.
Fluvanna. It's the Ryan subdivision across the street from the main gate at Lake Monticello. And I've appraised probably 60, 70% of the houses in there because we work with NVR all the time. And we actually appraised this property when they bought it 3 or 4 years ago. And it's gone up tremendously, double digits gone up. And but I'm starting to see the underpinnings of that market starting to slip away a little bit. We're seeing longer days on market. We're seeing sales that are selling lower than they probably should sell for based on data, which means the market's appetite's changing a bit. And I did a bad job a while ago of explaining why price per square foot matters. More so, I think, when you're doing trending like we're doing on these charts, more so than absolute sales price. Just think about it like this, and this is what threw the green stuff off for the car chart. From
I want to
the
take
last
a
quarter.
deeper dive into that.
Yeah, but what happens is just imagine that a bunch of property comes on the marketing and gets absorbed that is all really low price point or it's really high price point. If that's the majority of what happens in the course of 6, 7, 8 months, then it'll skew the market in that direction. Where price per square foot is actually going to, it deals more with the scales and the different levels of quality and condition and things like that as well. So, it's going to put things together in a more understandable manner. So I think it's a better metric to really use. So, sorry, I went all over the place with you there, Keith.
No, it was good.
Man, brother, you're doing great.
Al Mariachi, the team over there is watching. Eric Thompson, welcome to the program. Viewers and listeners, you can ask the pros question. Dr. John Shave, the owner of Pro Renata, co-owner, watching the program. Katie Pearl, hello. That email is forthcoming, Katie Pearl, I promise. Chad Wood, hello. Lisa Costello, hello. Welcome to the program. Andre Xavier, this show is up your alley. Jamie Turner, the real estate investor. Brent Lillard, the commercial investor, welcome to the program. A lot of commercial in the program. Rob Hubbard, the Esquire, welcome to the show. Woody Fincham is the guy in this community for appraising property. Fincham and Associates. Woody, the show is yours.
Appreciate it, man. I really do. Getting imposter syndrome hearing all this laudatory stuff.
Did you say lavatory?
Laudatory.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my hearing aids picked up something.
Roger Voisinay says, this is great information, Woody. He is sitting at the edge of his seat looking for more from you.
Man, I figured you'd be watching a hockey game, Roger. But thanks for tuning in. So moving on to, Jude, if we can look at slide number 3. This is a metric that I don't really see a lot of folks talk about either, which is days on market. And we've got 2 charts in here. There's one that's for sales and one for actives. And there's a big difference between the 2 of them right now. Which is meaning to me that the market is probably decelerating a little bit.
So before we get into that, so let's talk about the difference between the traditional DOMs and the active DOMs, because
Yep.
you had to give me an education about
Sure.
that. So for the folks that are watching and listening, why is the difference? Because the regular DOMs are showing 7 currently, but the actives are showing 43. So what's the difference, and why do we have so different set of numbers?
So this is a very important thing, particularly for appraisers. And I think this is where a lot of appraisers kind of get a black eye because they spend too much time on sales. Of course, sales are important. That indicates what the market's absorbed at. And so, the sold days on market are important, but they give you a retrospective perspective of the market. The actives, however, give you what's going on right now. And if you're starting to see a lengthening in the actives, which we are currently seeing, that tells me that the market's probably putting the brakes on a little bit. I don't think we're in any serious there's no issues with the market right now in a negative manner, but it's just slowing down.
But the delta, and I think the point you're trying to make is the delta between the DOMs, right? So these DOMs are established by sales, right? Once
Yes.
it sells, it's done.
Exactly.
The active numbers, the 43, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is how many days on market homes are active at this very moment, correct?
Right. That would be the overall footprint for the entire
The
area.
overall footprint, so what is active right now, so just, and correct me if I'm wrong, so the DOMs that you're showing on slide number 2 this is closed, and this is what we're showing as the DOMs, but the actives are about 43.
Yeah.
And the delta between the two is growing, and that's what we're talking about,
Yeah,
right?
we're seeing it starting to lengthen out some, which means, more of a normal market, if there's even such a term. I hate using normal market, but
So it was interesting, at the CEO conference up there, Dr. Lisa Sturtevant gave a challenge out to 400 top CEOs in this industry and said, was talking about what the absorption rate was. She was kind of geeking out on absorption rates and monthly, total inventory absorption, number of months, right?
Right.
And the conversation was, does anybody think 6 or 7 months is the neutral market? What is it? And everybody in the room is back to between 3 and 4 months.
Right.
So as far as absorption goes, as far as inventory goes, everybody's now looking at a 3 to 4 month.
That might be long for this market.
right now it is. Right now.
I would say a neutral market, and you guys are the pros. I just learned from you guys. I'd say a neutral market and the car footprint might be in the 45 to 60 day range.
I would agree 100%.
That was the retrospective way of looking at it for sure. What's the new normal? I don't know. I mean, real estate's dynamic. It's like any market, and
That's what I love about it.
yeah, I mean, it's
And that's why you guys stay collecting checks, because you have to stay on. That's why we do it with the infrastructure and the branding, because it's constantly changing, which means we're having to constantly learn. And because we're constantly learning and other people aren't learning at the same clip as us, we're able to make a business around it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see what's going on. I mean, we're still, I'm looking at my data here. The sales D&M, and these are all median numbers, but I mean, the last 3 90-day periods were median of 7 days on market. I mean, that's a fast market still.
So let me go back to this median thing, because one of the things that was also discussed by Dr. Lisa Sturtevant is the differential between average and median, and how this market right now, it was so traditionally, you looked at median.
Right.
I've been doing it for decades, right? But she's now saying, you can't really discount the average, because it's really, you've got to take a look at both sets of numbers. Why is she saying that for?
So the average is going to be affected more by outliers, things that are really high and really low. That may not be in the normal cluster of data. And that's what I'm seeing in this analysis that I'm doing out in Palmyra right now. I've got a couple pieces of data that are really high, a couple pieces of data that are really low, and then I've got a cluster in the middle. So in that situation, an average is going to get pulled depending on how far away one of those outliers. The greater the distance on one of those outliers means the further away from that central that it's going to be. We don't like it as much as median, because a median is more neutralized, a number where it's not affected so much by those outliers. But when you're in a transitioning market, when you start seeing those, because they're both measures of what we call central tendency, right? So the further those numbers start getting apart means that the market's transitioning in some way. So average is very relevant to what we're talking about. But when everything, like we were a year and a half ago, average was not a useful number because everything was just going right out the door. There was no problems with interest rates. It was the most efficient market we've ever seen. But now we're getting into a less efficient market, and so there's going to be a greater pull on those averages, and the averages can indicate that, yeah, we're definitely heading in a different direction.
Fantastic explanation. That was excellent.
This is why today's deep dive is so important, right? You know, because at the end of the day, unless it's a cash transaction, which, by the way, there's a huge amount of them, but unless it's a cash transaction, you and your industry is involved in this, right? And for us as real estate agents, right, and folks that are trying to help set prices, and I'm just looking at what just changed on, there was 42 price changes in the last 7 days, which is telling me people are not getting the prices right going into the door, right? And this is where get this knowledge will be helpful.
By price changes, he means reductions, folks.
Thank you very much.
Well, I think the new term is price improvement.
Yeah, or price modification.
Yeah.
That's called branding right there.
There you go.
The
Comments.
prices are being lowered.
This one's a good comment from Scott Thorpe, commercial guy. Does Woody have price per square foot on new construction?
I can get those numbers for sure. Because we're putting out a lot of new information that we've never had on the show before, we wanted to kind of give you more of a 20,000 foot view of it rather than get too deep on it. But if we get some positive feedback on this, we'll do some deeper dives on this for sure.
So folks out there watching and listening, DM everybody here. You know, we're going to be doing this once a month. We're going to take a day and take a super deep dive into certain specific areas to help folks to kind of track. Nobody else is doing this out there in the marketplace, so we're trying to do this and share this with everybody. So, you know, if we have some of that information, please send it that way. We'll take a look at it. But you've got two other things you look at, which most people don't look at, and I'm pretty sure, at least I know I didn't until we got into a deep dive on this, is your concession percentage.
Yes.
And then your contribution percentage.
Right.
So if you could keep it at my level, which is about third grade, if you could keep it at a third grade level, if you can explain what they are and what's the difference and why do they impact the market value?
So the first number with concessions we look at is how many sales are actually transacting with concessions. Are they actually, you know, is it 20% of all the sales, 30% of all? The higher the number, of course, would indicate the more softer the market may be, meaning that, you know, you may get a full list price on it, but if you're paying 3% closing cost on the concession side, then your sales price minus that 3% is the actual value of that transaction from a cash basis.
So let's explain concessions real quick. So concessions are when the seller basically pays for a buyer's closing costs.
You can buy down points.
Points is a list of certain things. So if home is listed for $1 and you're doing a 3% commission, my little brain, I can do this pretty simple. It's 3 cents. Right. So whatever 3% of that amount of money or whatever it is, this word concession, Jerry, is going to be so important in the next 12 months. Because all of these lawsuits that are getting settled and about ready to get settled is going to change our world and rock our world here.
Do we want to touch on those?
We are. We're going to do that on Monday.
I got my wrist slapped when I brought that up a couple of months ago.
Yeah, well, since there was a settlement in the middle of the CEO conference, we could do that. But that's a Monday show. I want to talk to you about it.
And it wasn't a wrist slap by Keith. It was actually a wrist slap by one of the brokers tied to a firm that was in the lawsuit.
Yeah, well.
And I said, you know what? This is my show. I'm going to talk about whatever I want. And then you know what he said?
Okay.
But
we do need to be careful because there's still pending lawsuits and all that kind of great stuff. But there is one that got settled, so we can talk about that.
I'm disappointed. I'm going to be in Milwaukee on Monday. I'd really like to tune in. I'm going to have to listen to it afterwards.
I need to go through a bunch of notes from sitting down with a cocktail with CEOs from some of the major companies talking about this. So that's a Monday show. But let's stay on.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's stay on making.
So let's talk about concessions a little more in depth too. And this is very important for any of the agents listening. Repairs that need to be made that the seller are going to make to a property to help it transact are not concessions. So if you knock off 20 grand for a roof and you sell it lower and they're going to replace the roof immediately after purchase, that's not a concession. I know sometimes when we call agents and ask them about the concession information, they'll say, oh yeah, there was, they gave them a $6,500 allowance for flooring or something like that. That's not a concession. That's a condition issue that we would, as an appraiser, we would look at it in a different manner
But
than a
do
concession.
appraisers look at condition, right? When you walk through a
absolutely.
house,
Absolutely.
right? So let's get this out. We got location, price, features, right? Condition is what we're talking about.
Sure.
Timing and who's on the other side matters. So when a lot of people don't realize that when you walk through a property and the condition is not up to speed, that has a value impact, correct?
It absolutely does. Now, that's been minimized the last several years because, there's no one, everybody's trying to get a house. So they're willing to
Overlook.
overlook, blemishes and things like that. And they go, you know what? We like the school district. We like this. We like that. We're just going to get it. We'll
But it
worry about
impacts
post.
valuation, though. That's the
It
point
can,
I'm trying to
yeah.
make.
Well, less so in the last couple of years, more so as the market's evolving forward now. Because as the market does start to soften some, condition's going to play a big deal.
Because you're saying less so in the last few years because the negotiated price, the agreed upon price is going to trump the condition.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, people are overlooking condition, whereas in a stable market or more stable market
They would
we've been
not.
in, they're really, there's more competition, so they can go, you know what, we don't like this one because the paint's all wrong. We're gonna have to spend 10 grand painting it after we buy it. But this one over here is just like it, and it's got brand new paint in it, so we're gonna go over here instead.
So Yoon and Steravent were sharing data numbers but to support that. Prior to, people didn't really care about the condition. Right now, because of the interest rates
Right.
and the sales price, the homes have to be in prime condition.
Yes, yes.
And I think the point you're talking about, though, if you go ahead and spend $5,000 to paint the house up, you're not necessarily going to get $5,000 out on the back end in valuation. Is
No,
that
but
what we're talking-
it may add a whole lot of marketability and curb appeal to the property.
There you go.
That there's not really a value so much there, but yeah, the ROI or the return on investment of that particular maintenance item is not necessarily going to equate into that much value.
According to NAR, National Associated Realtors, people make decisions within 5 to 7 seconds. So when they walk in, and it starts from when they get out of the vehicle and look at that house, that 5 to 7 seconds kicks in. And one who's walked people up properties, you can see, you can just watch the whole body language just go whoop.
Well, that's psychology of the transaction
Yeah.
that I'm learning today. That's great.
Yeah.
It's worth getting out of bed.
Eric Thompson says this, and Eric Thompson, the best place to put these comments is not necessarily DM to me, but it's in the comment section on any of the Facebook pages you're watching the show on. I get those aggregated with our software. He says, Woody, a data-driven show is perfect. I would love this. Make it regular. And he asks, can we share the PowerPoint and the source of your data? So he'd love to see the PowerPoint. I think you're going to archive that where?
On Real Talk with Keith Smith.
Excuse me.
So if you take a look at my Facebook post or Real Talk Facebook, they're actually, I buried them in the post, and the data source is CAR, right? You're using
Yep.
CAR as a data source, and the genius is Woody, who's putting them all together, which is really easy for me. I don't have to do it anymore.
Right. Woody's the pro's pro. I mean, he's the guy for
Well, I'm
this.
smart enough to get hooked up with somebody who really knows what they're doing.
We did a deeper dive on all the data that we have here today. Like I said, we're just doing a 20,000 foot view of it right now. Any of you out there listening or watching, if you want the rest of the data that I ran for this show, I'm more than happy to provide it to you. Just email me. Don't text me because I'll forget to get back to you.
Grayson says, what's your website, Woody?
WoodyFincham.com.
So what we'll do is the rest of the data, because it was like 20 pages or whatever, where I'm going to ask Judah to put up on the website on the market reports, and then
Sure.
then we can share it that way.
Great,
So that's where
great.
that's where it's going to be. So back on concessions.
Yep.
So we're saying between 0 and 3 months, right? So the last 90 days, 21.4% of all transactions had some sort of concession.
That's true.
So interesting, you compare that back to, what, 40 months ago, that was 70%. So we went from 70%, roughly 4 years ago, to 21%. Why is that?
Well, I'm sorry, Keith, I was trying to
That's
find
okay,
that sheet.
no worries.
Repeat that real quick for me.
We'll do. So between month 37 and 39, so you're working everything backwards,
Yep.
right? From today back 48,
True.
48 months. So the initial start of this chart is showing 70% of concessions. Today, we're at 21%.
Yes.
So that's a pretty wide delta.
Oh, it really is. But, you go back 37 to 39 months ago, we were in a much different market than we are right now. I mean, that was we were what? That would have been right after COVID started. So the market was transitioning from pre-COVID into the COVID market. So yeah, concessions would have been a more popular thing back then because buyers were expecting that. And VA's a very steadfast type of financing too, and there's always concessions on VA because there's certain things the veterans can't pay for that they require to come out of the transaction amount. So, which
Another thing for Monday's show, the Dr. Sturtevant was talking about a W market, which we're going to kind of take a little deeper dive into it. Whereas after COVID, we were talking about a V, and it pretty much happened. So we're going to kind of describe a little bit about what the W market that she.
Oh, you mean like a sawtooth movement with
Exactly
seasonality?
right.
Yeah,
And it's going to flatten out on it. So we're out here. She thinks it's going to take a dive.
She's not super bullish on the market right now, is she?
She thinks, well, she is and she isn't. It's very interesting.
And Dr. Sturtevant is the chief economist for Bright.
That's true,
And
yeah.
Bright is this synonymous. How would you characterize Bright?
So
a competitor to.
Bright is a regional MLS. It
Yeah.
covers most of the Northeast, a little bit in the South. It's probably the largest.
Bright's got market share.
It's probably the largest. They partnered with.
we call them the Borg because they assimilate every MLS out there.
And they partnered with the California MLS, which is the largest in the country.
Yeah.
So they have a really good footprint. So she runs the whole economic. So when she speaks,
People listen.
you need to listen to her.
Yeah, she's a true economist in the sense that they call it the dismal science for a reason because when you're doing econometrics, you're looking at data and you're letting the data tell the story. You're not trying to orchestrate a story around the data and just using the data as a prop.
Which I'm going to say this. You're not saying this. Dr. Yoon does that.
No, I'm not saying that.
I'm saying that. He looks at things through a rose-colored lens because he's the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors,
Well,
and he is working for realtors.
And I had cocktails with both of them
Yeah.
last week. Look, his job is very political.
Yes.
I mean, you and I watch on CNBC all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I mean, that guy's the guy when
Yeah,
it comes to real estate.
And look, what did you call it? The dismal science?
The dismal science,
The
yeah.
dismal science of it. But I've actually wrote it down, a quote from, and yes, I can write people.
You can read that?
Yes, I even. She said, tell stories with data.
Yeah.
So let data tell stories. And that was my premise for today, to kind of tell a story a little bit about it. But back on the contribution, right? So
Yep.
these are like 2% numbers, 1% numbers. So that's slide number 6, Judah. Explain that to me one more time, right? What exactly is the impact on the market and contributions from it? Is it not something we as real estate agents should be looking at, or
Yeah,
what should we do?
I think in a more competitive market where there's ample inventory, and again, getting back to that quote unquote normal situation, you're going to see the amount of concessions are usually going to be a bit higher. And there'll be more of them. So the percentage that we're looking at on slide 6, this is basically just saying this is how much of the transaction amount they're paying in concessions. If you go back to that, where we were showing 70% of the market, it was actually lower than it is now at 1.4%. But there was also more participants, sellers that were willing to pay those concessions. A lot of sellers have not been willing to pay concessions for a while now. That's why we're down to 20% or so on all transactions having concessions.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect to see 20%.
I didn't either.
Did you, Jerry?
I don't expect that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I expected as close to zero as we could get.
Well, again, VA, we're a DoD state, so VA transactions still, there's a large amount of them, and all of those are going to have a concession of some kind on them, generally speaking.
Yeah, but VA is not a huge percentage of the market. I mean, I could just take a look at the last 7 days real quick.
Sure.
On while somebody else talks, we had 51 units closed in the last 7 days, and I can tell you how much was cash and how much wasn't here in a minute.
Yeah,
This market is shifting.
Yeah.
And it's shifting pretty quickly here.
Excuse me, Jerry, 7 were cash, 38 were conventional, 2 FHA, 1 non-specified. So out of the 50, only 3 were VA.
Okay.
So but that's in the last 7 days.
So it's less than 10%. So, I mean, I lean on VA heavily because I'm a VA panel appraiser, and it's the steadiest mortgage business that we have right now. I mean, people in the VA with VA benefits are still refinancing. I'm shocked at how many refinances we actually see.
So back to the shifting of the market, I need to ask you the crystal ball question, right? Where do you've looked at these numbers, you're in numbers all day long. My assumption is, my analysis is that this inventory restriction that we have on, or constriction or lack thereof, is probably 5 to 10 years down the road.
Sure.
Are you seeing the same thing?
Well, with what the economist from the National Association of Home Builders, I cannot pronounce her name, and I apologize.
Yeah.
Wonderful economist as well. I mean, their data on what's going on with the supply and demand with new construction, they're not expecting there to be enough inventory on the market to suit need at least through 26 or 27.
2025.
Yeah, so that's when it's going to start, but I mean,
Yeah.
we won't see that starting to decline at all. Of course, then we're going to get into that shift between the millennials and all that, and the next generation behind them. There's just not going to be as many people as active in the market, 10 years down the line. Where do I see us in the short term? I think that prices are going to remain up. I think interest rates, and I do disagree with Dr. Yoon on this, and this is just anecdotal. I don't have any support for it, but I don't think we're going to be back down into a mid-6 percentage basis by January, February. He's saying that
Yoon is saying mid-6 by Q1,
Yeah.
start of Q1?
Yeah.
Not a chance in hell.
I don't think so with what I'm seeing right now. I mean, that's more of a Scott Morris question, but
I honestly think that there's going to be another rate hike coming up.
yeah.
there's definitely another rate hike coming. We're expecting another 25
The
basis.
official answer, that's a 50-50 chance. This may not happen the next go around, but I can tell you about Christmas time, it's going to happen.
That's what I'm saying. And for those that are saying that there's not going to be another rate hike, I'm like, what's in that pipe?
Well, what that's going to do, and we learned this yesterday.
The rate hike's going to time with Christmas spending and really F people up.
Well-
That's what's going to happen. Because people put the Christmas spending on credit cards. That's what they do.
They did show that yesterday, that the revolving debt for credit cards is going up. More
Yeah.
people are using their revolving credit to pay bills.
Well, because they got all this cash. Oops, spent all this cash, and now they're just spending more money into the cash from the government.
Here's the crazy, this is such a dichotomy. We have Americans, we talked about this on yesterday's show, American homeowners on average have $200,000 in equity in their house.
Yeah.
This is macro.
Yeah.
Americans have the most equity in their homes
Ever.
in the history of America now. The only time that was, right there was peak 2022. Okay. So most equity in their homes now, but also the highest credit card debt in American history right now.
And-
if I was in the mortgage business, I would be chasing HELOCs and branding and positioning myself as the HELOC maestro.
Yeah. I mean, we're actually working with a mortgage company as a consultant right now they've gotten into the solar. They've been doing the solar loans for solar panels on homes, and they're a national company, and they're going to try to convert all those what they call UCC1 loans, which are, it's bad for the consumer in the sense that it makes the panels their collateral to the property. So for the loan. So if they default on that loan, the company can come in and take the panels away. So they can't add value because they're not part of the real estate because they don't have full ownership rights to them yet. So they're converting all those over to traditional mortgages now, and that's interesting that a big company like that's going in that direction. So
for
I love Woody.
For agents out there
Mm-hmm.
that are trying to help clients help clients put homes on the market and hit valuation, right? So you're suggesting for them to start looking maybe a little bit at the square footage price, right? They got to do it smartly, right? So
Yeah.
if I'm looking at a home at Lake Monticello and another home at Lake Monticello, right? And so they're similar square footage, lot size. That's a good number to start looking at right now.
it's good as long as it's used correctly. Now, you don't want to, there's two major types of property at Lake Monticello. There's the colonial 2-story, and there's the ranch basement with a basement. If you're looking at a house that's a ranch with a basement, only use those kind of properties. And don't go to the acres if you're in the regular section. Don't go to a waterfront
Hey,
if you're not in that section.
Some guy lives in there.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the acres. When you put it up for sale, I think we're going to buy it
Oh,
anyway.
stop it.
Yana, if you're ready.
No,
let me
she's
know.
she's in Austin at a leadership conference, so she's not watching.
But yeah, I mean, you want to use like to like. You don't want to compare a pear to an apple. I mean, and that's the mistake a lot of agents will make. I know when we get a reconsideration of value, sometimes where we're not able to support contract, agents will send us over comps that are based solely on price per square foot. But if it's, if I'm doing a ranch and you're sending me over colonials, those aren't comparable properties.
Man, this is maybe the right format to do this, but I would love to do a live, way you do a CMA using Paragon and how to go ahead and do that, because that's what happens. You really need to make sure that you narrow down, comparables. You're not using more acreage or less acreage and so forth and so on. There's a ton of agents that are pros out there that know how to do that.
Sure.
There's some of them that do not.
Yeah.
And this would be a great opportunity to go ahead and help that. So we'll have to figure out a way to go ahead and do that.
That's
But-
a Judah question. Can we actually do a screen share where we can put it on live?
That is a Judah question.
But we can talk about it later. That's what
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
that is a Judah question.
Judah's head
Yeah,
just
Judah's
went.
let's talk about it later. He said we'll talk about it later. Comments. Put the comments in the feed, guys. We'll relay them live on air. Carly Wagner, welcome to the program. Carly Wagner is going to join us on the talk show later this month. We're excited to have her on the show. Sarah Hill Buchensky watching the program. Ray Cadell watching the program. Dude, you guys have a boatload of real estate investors on this show right now. I count 7 that I know of watching the talk show right now. Woody Fincham is a guy that you should contact for appraisals, guys. Carol Thorpe watching the program.
Hey, Carol.
She says, a happy client of Keith Smith.
Oh, very much so. Wonderful people.
She says, a house next door to mine, Woody, went on the market. It was built in 1979 and abused by its last 2 owners. It was spruced up and put on the market August 17th for a ridiculous $470,000.
And sold.
Clearly, the owners are seeking to recoup 100% of their fix-up costs, but nobody's interested. We have not seen a single buyer come to tour, and they just knocked $10K off the asking price with the house already floundering 3 weeks on the market. Carol Thorpe, we appreciate you sharing that. Can you let us know, if you could, the neighborhood? And I just responded to your friend request, Carol Thorpe. Let us know the neighborhood. That would be great. I'm starting to see, and you guys have talked about this, not only the price modifications, homes are starting to stay stickier.
Yeah.
Well, that's the point. This is the important part about the DOMs. And I got admonished years ago by other brokers that I rely a lot on DOMs. It's easy for me to understand. It's easy for me to look at. It's easy for me to equate a quick absorption. It kind of tells you who's getting the market right and who's not getting the market right at a given moment. But I really did not look at the difference between the actives and the souls. I kind of focus on the souls, and in our conversations, you've recruited me a little bit to start thinking about away from that, because of the fact it's 45 days old, it's 60 days old,
Right.
it's 30 days old, right? It's not reflective of what's happening now because the market's moving so
Well,
fast.
I think that because the market was going the way that it was, a lot of professionals on the sales side were just knee-jerk responses of, hey, this has been on the market for 25 days. There's something wrong with it. We're not even going to look at it.
That's what's happening now.
Yeah. I think we've got more discerning consumers out there. I mean, they
They have to be. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's so costly.
I mean, what did was it Yoon or the other economist yesterday at our meeting had mentioned that every time we go 25 basis points up, we eliminate 1 million buyers from the market nationally.
Yeah, every
You guys should consider every time they do a rate hike like this, how it impacts people from like an actual physical health and the deaths that it creates. That's a statistic that you guys should Google after the show. When they hike, like they're doing, people die.
The first job I ever had as an adult was working at a funeral home. And anytime there's economic stress or there's seasonal stress, like high temperatures or really low temperatures, it's amazing the amount of calls we would get at the funeral home base. I'm sorry to be morbid, but
No.
but I mean that's a reality. I mean, stress does induce people passing away.
Yeah, that's and it's, the data's online there. Not to get morbid either, but so comments are coming in fast and furious. This is a great one. You've touched on this briefly. Jonathan Galasso says, "How does Woody do his job when it's a neighborhood of very custom and different homes? Does that make it more complicated for Woody?"
Very carefully. when you get into custom, let's talk about Farmington, a very exclusive market. There's a myriad of property styles in there. Some newer stuff, not new, but newer stuff, and then we've got some really, nationally recognized pieces of property like Allison Hall and those properties. It's almost more of a qualitative comparison than a quantitative. Like in Lake Monticello and Forest Lakes, we can get very quantitative because I can correlate. Numbers to how people are reacting. When you get into a custom market, very often an appraiser, because of the conservative nature by which we use all of our techniques and methodologies, we're usually going to be under what someone's going to pay for a property in Farmington, and particularly the higher end ones, because there's that market's able to pay cash for almost anything they want. So it's a matter of people writing a check. So if someone's particularly moved to buy a piece of property, they do it out of emotion, and they'll pay more money for it. And it's not uncommon for a $5 million property to transfer out there, and then they'll spend almost $1 million or more on it, making it their own after they buy it.
I mean, a perfect example of that is the listing Tommy Branning has right now in Farmington.
Okay.
There's a Farmington listing right now. It's the only house on the market in Farmington right now, on the market. There's a piece of land by Macon Gunner that's listed in Farmington as well. But Tommy's listing is, I think, and I'm looking at the MLS right now, 3250, $3,250,000. It's 440 Oak Circle, 5 bedrooms, almost 52, call it 5,138 square feet. You're talking a price per square of $632. And if you flip through these photos, I mean, it's a gorgeous home, brick Georgian.
Yeah, it really is.
If you flip through the photos, you will see that whoever buys this and spends this money, and it's getting some DOM on it, is going to probably put in $1 million to bring
Sure.
it up to 2023 standards.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with this property. I don't want to sound like I'm being negative on it, but there's a lot of.
It's just a price point standard. It's what you're saying.
Yeah, it's kind of a dated interior, and
Yes, look at the kitchen.
yeah. I mean, that's a specific taste to someone, and you see more of that in that custom market. That's, as an appraiser, we call that use value, meaning that it's a value that's specific to some person. Like swimming pools are a perfect example of use value. 2 out of 50 buyers want a pool. They just don't want to buy a house with a pool.
My wife has made the comment to me, because I would love a pool, and she's made the comment to me, we're not going to do that.
And why is
Because
that?
because of fear with the boys.
That's exactly
Sure.
right.
And I'm like, well, we can build a fence around the pool. And she goes, I just don't want to have that stress on me.
Yeah.
That's to each their own, though.
If you buy a house with a pool, it's a great investment as far as if you're going to enjoy it. But if you're going to put one in, your ROI is if you're interested in what you're going to be able to resell it for.
It's
in the
negative.
you're going to lose money.
Yeah, it's a negative ROI for
Well,
that reason.
it's a 50-50 shot.
Well, I mean, he called it 2 out of 50.
Yeah, I think from a boots on the ground kind of thing. My experience has been either half the people love it
Okay.
and half the people hate it, right? And
And there's also the maintenance and cost of maintenance.
Well-
I mean, what's the pool on average a year to maintain?
well,
We're talking thousands of dollars.
yeah.
Oh, sure.
And actually, since we are without children, we're empty nesters, I actually said to Yona, hey, well, let's put a little pool in the backyard because I like the water, I like the pool. And then I got the grandkids thing, no, we're not doing this. But at Lake Monticello, we just go to the pool.
Well, and that's what she said. Just go to Boar's Head if there's going to be a pool here. Eric Thompson says salaries are not keeping up with rental and home prices. Jamie Turner, who is a real estate investor. Dude, Jamie, I straight up sincerely mean this. Jamie Turner routinely watches this program. This dude is on the cusp of innovation and where the market is going and on entrepreneurship and macro and microeconomic trends. He said, the pain is here and a lot more pain is coming. And he also said, in regards to that house, the wood paneling, 1970s cabinets, and at that price point, which is, kind of what we were saying with that listing. And I'm not throwing shade on the listing. Please, no one say that. But when you're dropping $3 million plus, and you're going to have to put another mill into it, maybe that's why there's a little DOM on this particular house here.
So add something to Farmington, because when you guys were talking, I looked it up. The last 12 months back, there was 5 sales. You want to guess how many of them were cash?
I would say a good portion of them, all 5?
5.
Yeah. I mean, because of that price point and the wealth.
The luxury buyer right now, it just
It's not
literally
going to
heard
take 8
it.
points on a loan.
Just they won't do that, and it's really interesting. The luxury buyer is buying multiple homes for cash, and they're doing one home here, one home there, one home here on that end of it. But so none of them would end up in Woody's world unless they want to negotiate an appraisal.
You'd be surprised at how many diligence appraisals
Yeah,
we'll do
sure.
on cash deals, though.
So speaking about that, right?
She says Oak Forest for that house that went on the market for $470,000. Carol,
Yeah, it's
it's a
Oak
stone throw across the street from Albemarle. Carol Thorpe says Oak Forest.
Thank
I've
you.
lived in this neighborhood for 27 years. There's a house on the market that went on at $470,000, which you said was absurdly priced, and they just did a price reduction.
Yeah, we'll look that up while we're talking. But yeah, so I was going to give a little shout out to Woody here because I've referred you a bunch of times from these real estate agents that are calling
Yeah.
me.
Thank you for that, by the way.
My pleasure. Well,
He's the pros pro.
we're all here trying to make the market better.
Yeah.
Right. So talk a little bit about that because there was a couple of agents that couldn't help navigate their client in value, right? Their seller had a different value in their head than maybe what they came
Yeah.
up with. And so I suggested that they reach out to you. So talk a little bit about that. If an agent wants to use you to help evaluate the home, how does that process work for you?
So that's actually been a big pickup in business for us over the last couple of years, where agents will get a difficult seller. And, the seller's got an idea where the value should be, or the sales price should be, rather. And they're going, that's probably not possible. And the agent will do everything they can to convince their client to go in a different direction. And then, of course, the seller's hard-headed. They're like, no, we're not going to do it. And so we'll get a phone call on that situation often, and we go out and we'll run the numbers, and more often than not, we end up supporting where the agent's position was in the very beginning because
Sure.
They're professionals, they know what they're doing, but for whatever reason, a lot of consumers are like, you know what, you're a salesperson. I think I know better than you do. I mean, of course, Zillow and Realtor.com and all that, it arms consumers with a lot of data, and sometimes they know how to read it, a lot of times they don't. But I'll come in, support what the agent's saying, and then the homeowner will go, oh, okay, well, that's where we need to be.
I just look at the Realtor.com and the Zillow data as a starting point. It's a
Yeah.
starting point for a conversation to that should be transitioned then into a conversation with an expert like Woody. It's like a barometer. It's a metric to consider. This dude actually has the boots on the street.
So the next powerhouse in this business is CoStar.
Yep.
And I had a cocktail with the CEO the other day, and they specifically do not do valuations in their systems, and they're moving to a whole fee-based, subscription-based thing instead of what the Zillow is doing.
CoStar's great.
So they're gonna
I mean, what's the chuckle?
They're great, but they're a monopoly, and they need to be busted up. I mean, I'm sorry, CoStar.
Definitely a monopoly.
Them and LoopNet, when they acquired LoopNet a few years ago, they hold the entire corner of the commercial, because they're essentially a commercial MLS for those who don't know what CoStar is.
Right.
But now they're moving into, because they own Homes.com, and it used to be HomeSnap, and now it's Homes.com.
I pay that fee though for that content.
It's they haven't set the number. They announced it the other day that they're going to spend like $1 billion
I meant the LoopNet.
on the thing. Yeah, LoopNet is interesting. So look, I just looked.
Steven Peters giving this dude props. Normally 3 weeks would not be termed as floundering. Property pimples have no effect in a heated market, but do affect a market that is more normal or a buyer's market. Who's Steven Peters?
Steven Peters is one of my clients and dear friend.
He's given
I love property pimples. That's awesome.
property pimples.
He's one of your clients too.
You're getting some props as well from Bevan, Seta, Bozavert.
Yeah, Bevan.
Enjoying all the real estate nuggets today. Show's fantastic.
Good to see you yesterday, Bevan.
Nicholas Erpy dropping dimes over here. We love you, CMO Nicholas Erpy, watching. You have, gentlemen, I'm going to get out of your way. You have a boatload of real estate investors watching the program right now. Woody Fincham is bringing the real estate investors to the program at a clip that I don't think I have seen in maybe ever here. Keep going, Woody.
It must be the mustache that keeps Scott. It brings everybody in. Where were we? I'm sorry.
This is a great comment for
You just
Woody.
got excited about my mustache.
People
didn't you?
love Woody. This is a great comment from Eric. You guys need to do a show that teaches the general public how to extract, build, and read the data. that would be very, very beneficial.
So thank you for doing that. So this
Like
is
a
like
master class.
So this is day one of that, right? So Woody and I are working on trying to build this. This is going to be once a month show. It's typically going to be the Monday after the end of the month, but we had a little holiday last Monday, so Woody is going to put the data together. We're going to work over the weekend and then release where we are at that month, and then start taking into these master class. But everybody's talking. I'm looking at Oak Forest, and I'm trying to test your square footage theory on that. So if somebody can talk for a second, I got a little couple of numbers.
I got
to crunch
another
in.
address that people are looking for a case study on. JT, thank you for sending this our way. Here's an address for you, Woody. 624 Woods Lane. 8 is the road name. So 624 is the number. EIGHT Woods Lane. And JT says $950,000 for a townhome. $950,000 for a townhome. A year built, and I'm looking at the listing, year built 2017, HOA fees are $208 a month. It just came on the market one day ago. Price per square, $316. 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, 3,000 square feet, $950 ask. A talented agent, Bunny French of Loring Woodruff, has the listing.
Yeah, that is a high price point for a town, but I mean, that particular neighborhood always has high price points for towns. I'm just trying to.
What neighborhood is that?
I'm trying to pull that up as we're talking.
I mean, it's a beautiful home.
Oh, for sure.
And it still's got that new look and feel. I mean, the kitchen, you can tell. I mean, this is a gorgeous home.
So we're all doing this live and on the fly here, but I just took a look at Oak Forest, and thank you, Carol, for sharing that. So just taking a look at what has sold in the last 12 months, there was 4 homes that sold. Back to Woody's square footage, so the average square foot price on that was $212.64. The one that's listing right now is at $245. I'm trying to compare homes, make sure we're looking at apples to apples and pears to pears on that end of it. But do you think that's kind of where we're kind of a little skew on the number why this is on the market for a little bit longer than I think it should be? By the way, on the sales, on the 4 sales there, the average, because I'm going to use average DOMs, is 28.
Okay.
So we are now 39. So we're roughly 10 days, 11 days.
It's
over.
seasoning. I mean, it's seasoning longer than typical. So
Yeah.
I mean, that should be indicating to someone that, hey, we might want to rethink our strategy on how we're putting this out there. Price is wrong on it.
The townhome is in Kenridge, Ivy Road,
Yeah.
across from Borsed, next to Farmington.
Yeah, we've done a bunch in there over the years. It's a beautiful little subdivision of attached homes.
Gorgeous subdivision, and the price, the sticker shock of $950,000. There's a premium for that little corridor.
Yeah.
What is the premium for Ednam Village, Kenridge, Farmington, and like Ivy right on the Charlottesville line? I mean, Bel Air's in there as well. I mean, what are you talking, like a 25% premium just for that quarter?
Well, I mean, I'll put it to you this way. We don't go to other neighborhoods to comp those properties when we're in them because they are their own markets. Ednam is its own thing. Farmington's definitely its own thing. And there are sections in Farmington. They're not sections, but different niches
For
of
sure.
property in there for sure. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there's a few estates that we've done that are outside of the subdivisions that are adjacent to Ednam and right across from Farmington, like Cherry Hill and Windsor Hill. Those properties are super, super valuable because they are literally, as you are crossing that threshold from the urban area or suburban area into the rural area. Just beautiful views from those
I mean,
properties too.
great location, close to everything.
Yeah.
You have amenities right on in the urban ring, but in Albemarle County. Hop, skip, and a jump from the University of Virginia.
Yep.
Interstate 64, the bypass. I mean, it's got everything there. Bevan says, thank you, Keith. Jeff Bentley jumping in the mix here. TV station down the road watching us on Real Talk with Keith Smith.
So this is live, so don't hold me to it. But looking at go back on that oak tree or that oak forest, I've kind of took out basement versus no basement and so forth and so on
Right.
on it. It looks like it's about 5 to 10% high on that end of it.
Well,
I think
she just said they had a price reduction,
Yeah,
and you still think it's high.
I think it's still high. Yeah. It went from 470 to 460.
That's another thing too. That I think she mentioned that this has been recently renovated, so they're trying to get their money back out of that. So
Well, that's back to your contribution percentage, right? And
Yeah.
that's also back to a show that Jerry and I did some time ago about what your ROI, your Harvest.
Well, that's something that an appraiser or a well-trained agent can help you with too. It's called a feasibility analysis. You know, what could you get for it right now? What could you get for it fixed up? If you have an idea of how you're going to fix it up, and what's the delta between the two? And with as high as the trades and materials are right now for contractors and what have you, a lot of times you're going to overdo it if you're not careful, and if you don't make conscientious decisions to limit what you're doing to it. If you over improve it and you're trying to immediately resell it, you're going to be negative on that, or you're not going to make as much profit on it as you would have otherwise.
Well, I will tell you, I buzzed through the 4 that sold in that neighborhood pictures versus this. As far as features and conditions, it's way over the other units. I mean, unbelievably done on it. So I just think it's just a little too high.
Lipstick on swine. I mean, and not that that neighborhood's a bad neighborhood or anything like that, but I mean, you can't treat something like a prize steer if you're in a regular beef market. I mean,
Love that analogy. Woody Fincham dropping dimes. This from Jamie. I've seen a few double wide homes sell for stick-built value.
oh my God, it's crazy what's going on in that market.
He says, does Woody see this trend retracting back to pre-insanity levels where double wides do not appraise at the same rate of stick-built?
Well,
a hell of a question.
They typically don't. I mean, on new construction manufactured, which those are a thumb on a hand, because how often does someone build one and then sell it? So most of the time, the costs on those and what the companies charge to build them are really high. They've gotten higher and higher and higher. With Freddie Mac's new program about 3 years ago, they've got this new generation of manufactured home that's come out. And I think they honestly came out with it to actually look at places like Detroit, where there was all this browned out areas where there was nothing going on, where you could get these really thin lots and set these manufactured homes on them. But what they did with that is they increased the quality of them to such a degree that they really aren't less expensive to build. You can certainly put more, if you're a builder doing it, you can do more units per year. But if you're going for high quality manufactured home, you're gonna be every bit as expensive as a mid-price stick build anymore. It's crazy how much that's gone up, because they're dealing with the same thing everybody else is dealing with. Even though what's the name of the company that Buffett owns that owns all the manufactured home companies? Gosh, my brain.
I'll look it up.
Warren Buffett and his big company. Berkshire Hathaway. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They
Gotcha.
own the
I
big.
thought you meant the specific company that owns
It's Clayton Homes.
Clayton Homes.
Yeah, it's who they own.
Yeah.
And
Shout out to our friend Jesse Rutherford.
yeah, for sure.
Oh my God, Jesse Rutherford is a huge fan
Yeah.
of those type of homes.
He's
watching.
He does a ton of that. It's
If,
just
if I were an investor right now and had the funds, I'd be going into Buckingham and buying lots and putting manufactured homes on them.
It's interesting, but the numbers are showing that the sales prices are going down in Buckingham, because we're not looking at that in these set of numbers, but they're going down. But I think it was Jamie Turner that may have mentioned this. Look, this market that we're in right now is going to be this market for a foreseeable future, unless something, none of us at this table know happens that impacts us across the board. Is that
Talking about Black Swan?
I mean, whatever, God forbid something happens that impacts the whole thing. Dr. Lisa Sturvin, I wrote it down. 20% of the national GDP, help me out there.
GDP.
Thank you. Is in the housing ecosystem. Now, I'm not an economist or a PhD or anybody, but I can tell you in the time of great unpleasantness, I can believe it, 20%. I mean, it impacted our country hugely when between 2008 2010. So 20% of our total GDP, if I got that right again, is whatever. I'm dyslexic. I'm reading it backwards.
It's okay. We know what you mean.
Yeah, do that. But I wanted to take something. 2 weeks ago on this Friday, which I think was the last time I was in the chair, we had 47
It's
days.
nice to have you back, dude.
Thank you, sir. I know
Sincerely
you. Yeah,
mean
I know. I feel guilty.
I-
I feel guilty every time I go away. But I tell you what,
Dude, it makes the flow for me. Yeah.
But I got so much education. You know, when you're sitting down with the people and just listening to the conversations, it's impactful. But 2 weeks ago, we only had 46 new homes come on the market. Today, 7 days back, at 70. That's a huge jump. I can't remember the last time I'd seen 70. I have to buzz through my phone to go ahead and see the last time. So we now are starting maybe to see the inventory uptick a little bit. I don't
Hopefully.
know. I don't know if that's seasonal. Maybe it is. Maybe seasonality is back.
Seasonality is definitely coming back. I mean, it used to be, particularly in the rural markets, we call it a sawtooth effect. You know, certain times of the year, volume was down quite a bit, and then certain times of the year, it's up quite a bit. But, you know, lately it's just been up all the time. So we definitely can use some more inventory for sure.
Yeah, 43 price changes. That number is almost double what it was 2 weeks ago. So, you know, I think people are going in,
Yeah.
getting a little long on the tooth and starting to reevaluate it. Look, I can't overstate to people out there, if you're going to put a house on the market, it needs to be priced right.
Yeah, there's this thing called stigma that happens to a property that's on the property too long. If it's on the market abnormally long because it's overpriced, people assume that there's something wrong with it.
A friend of the program, Andrew Hardy, watching the program, of Frank Hardy. Not only is he a phenomenal squash player and a great human being, I enjoy when he watches the show. Andrew, big ups to you, dog. Jason Howard, I'm going to get to your comments in a matter of moments. I think that just got a chuckle out of my friend Andrew right there. This is something that I saw on Twitter yesterday. Per Black Knight. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
It would take some combination of up to a 28% decline in home prices, a more than 4% reduction in 30-year mortgage rates, or up to a 60% growth in median household incomes to bring affordability back to its 25-year average. The average American buyer faces one of the most unaffordable housing markets in the history of the country, where first-time home buyers would need to earn as much as $90,000 in 2022 just to consider a starter home.
Yep.
Wait till you see what happens when we get 8,000 incremental people moving to the area tied to the $11 billion Amazon investment in Louisa, data science, Paul Manning, and student enrollment expanding.
This is the first time I've said this on the air, but I just use this term with the Fluvanna leadership. I'm in the program over there that they do to bring folks interested in helping out with the county and volunteering for the boards along.
It's a great program.
It really is. There's been some great people go through it, and but you know we're doing group projects in there, and my suggestion for a group project was to look at bringing more rooftops to Fluvanna because of the housing crisis. We have a housing crisis that's getting ready to happen.
Oh, I think we're in the crisis.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
I don't think you got the political capital to make that
No,
happen.
it's not going to happen, but we need to be looking at it.
And I think the person leading that charge is friend of the program and one of his intimate friends, Chris Fairchild.
Chris is a great guy.
Chris is a great guy.
Yeah, but
He's been straightforward with his platform from day one.
So it's national. Literally, that's what I talked about for 3 days. I was on heading up panels about housing affordability and so forth and so on for 3 days, 3 days on that. And the consensus of it at the end of the day, the delta between the haves and the have-nots is just going to get wider and wider and wider without some sort of uptick in product. I mean, it's a simple supply and demand situation. The demand is growing, and they were quoting all kinds of numbers about the millennials and the Gen Zs and all these folks coming in there, but these buyers are coming in. And I've said this on the show before, and I got myself into trouble for it, and I guess I'll do it again. You're going to start seeing, and they approved these numbers yesterday, you're going to start seeing some generational conflict,
Oh, sure.
right, between me and the millennial and the Gen Z. And
What do you mean by that?
because we've got the cash, right? We got the cash. I sell my house, I cash out on it.
Hasn't that already been happening?
It's been happening, but it's upticking in such a way that I don't think it's ever been seen before. And it hasn't in my tenure. That cash is so prevalent in this market. It's at certain price points. But look, here's the reality of it is, you cannot build a starter home, period. End of story. You can't get it developed. part of the Regional Housing Partnership. The elected officials' heads blew up when I talked to Keith Lancaster of Southern Development. I said, Keith Lancaster, tell me how much does it cost to do a townhome lot in Albemarle County? $70,000. That's the cost, by the way. That's not any profit. That's not any. That's just the cost. Then I turned to Stanley Martin Homes, one of our great sponsors, and say, tell me how much is it going to cost to build a 1,500 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhome, kind of entry-level
Right.
townhome. You put the two numbers together, that number's minimum 350, 375. 80% AMI in our market can't afford over 200. So what the hell's going to happen between the 150 and the 175 delta?
Well, the American dream of owning a home is becoming a privilege.
Yeah.
It's not something that is going to be attainable for those later generations. Now, as
Home ownership's a luxury.
the Gen
It's
X
not even home
and-
ownership. It's
and the
just
boomers,
getting an apartment nowadays.
as we get out of the market, it's going to happen because a lot of people that are in their retirement incomes now are not going to move. I mean, they talked about this yesterday. A lot of folks say, "Well, we're going to retire and go to Florida." Nobody's doing that now. I mean, they're looking at it going, "You know what? I've got a 3.5% mortgage. I'm staying right here."
But I think I don't the when, right? We got crystal balls. Nobody knows when the when's going to be. But historically, if you take a look at turns of markets like we have now here, eventually, Fed's going to lower prime, right? Or lower their interest rate, which is ultimately going to impact the 30-year mortgage. And there's going to be some sort of delta where we are now and where that number is, and it's 5. Nobody really knows. Let's call it
Zillow
5.
did a survey. We talked about this on the show earlier in the week. Zillow said they surveyed a boatload of people that rates have to drop between somewhere 5 and 5.5% for those of us that secured the 2, 3, or 4% rates to even consider listing our homes.
But what they don't take into consideration.
I mean, you're talking 2.5 point. What's it at now? 7.3, 7.4?
Something
yeah,
like that.
and
Talking a 2-point drop there.
I think they got an extra point baked in there that shouldn't be in there, but that's a whole different.
Well, if you
conversation.
looked at the difference now between the Treasury bond and the rate,
It's
that the
higher than
Fed's
it
got,
should be.
it's 3%. It's traditionally always been 2%.
Yeah.
There's a lot of comments here, and we're at 11:30. I want to see if we can get to as many of these as possible because the viewers have been waiting patiently. I'm getting texts, DMs, emails, and comments on the streams here. This is a good one from Scott Thorpe. I'm curious of your take on this, fellas. He says, inventory going up, sales slowing, will likely begin to increase price, will likely begin to see more price adjustments, meaning price drops. And he says, you will likely see equity shrink around these parts. And he also says, credit card debt does not go down slowly, but home equity can go down quickly.
So you're not going to see that. You'll see price deceleration. You're not going to see price depreciation.
Do you agree with that?
Well, let's look at the city with the upzoning thing coming up. I mean, a lot of my clients right now are investors banking on this upzoning stuff happening. That's not going to make any more houses come on the market. It's less houses coming on the market
Yeah,
because you've got people, some of these properties don't even list. They just transfer from one investor to the other. And that's inventory that never makes it to the market. And as that becomes more lucrative, more investors are getting involved with it. I mean, there's a few, like 5 or 6, 7 investors here locally that own a tremendous amount.
Yeah, and I'm on the record for this. I did, if and when this gets voted on and whatever version it takes, because I'm sure it's going to be regurgitated a couple of times
Sure.
before it happens, it's just not going to have this huge impact on number of units. But I'm taking a look at what has changed, these 43 price reductions that has happened in the last 7 days. It supports my argument that it's a deceleration. People went into the market thinking that it was higher than what it is. It's not double digits, it's not high double digits. I think when we have a show at the end of the year, we're probably taking a look at an average of somewhere in 6 to 8%, as I think we'll probably shake out at appreciation versus this year versus next year. But I don't see the numbers going backwards. Certain markets might, certain little pocket markets might go down on it, but I think globally it's a deceleration. It's not a depreciation.
Well, there's a big part of the market too that are entry level that can't buy, and if the market does decelerate some, that might bring them into the look because, 6.5%, 7.5% for someone getting into the market for the very first time, they got to have a home. So that's hopefully something.
80% of the people that are selling right now because they have to sell. Jerry's
Yep.
11:30. Are you free Monday? You want to join? Because it was just Jerry and I. You want to pick this up on Monday? or-
Unfortunately, I'm going to be in both Milwaukee and Texas next week
Oh,
because
good
I'm
for you.
teaching. So I won't be here all next week.
Gwendolyn says 73% of millennials 25 to 40 years old are one paycheck away from homelessness.
Yeah.
She also says home renovation spending is expected to decrease from
Yep.
$486 billion to $457 billion in 2024. The main driving factors of this decrease include high and rising interest rates, lowering housing price appreciation, and a decrease in home sales. Jason Howard, very quickly, Keith, if you can answer this question. We talked about the drought restrictions in Greene County. They've got a mandatory, literally, the government is telling people in Greene how they can use their water right now. And he says, as a former developer, would Keith be able to offer some perspective on what level of drought someone on a well would worry about not getting water? Are they better or worse off than someone on county water? Well water versus county.
That's a longer question, the answer we have here. But it's been my experience, droughts impact wells way more than actual, because look, a municipality, if there's a low flow into it, they can always build storage, right? It's a matter of money. Right, so Greene County, the biggest issue going on over there was, I think they've screwed up. They probably should have did an involuntary before a voluntary. The whole area is in a drought. Albemarle County is the same way. Fluvanna County is the same way on it. The issue with Greene County is very laser specific because they finally, after years of lawsuits, sued RSA and owned their system. There's a approved dam. They need $10-20 million to go ahead and build it. So there's a plan to improve it. I think from a PR perspective, that was handled rather poorly, and I've told the folks at Greene County that they probably should have came out as a little softer instead of...
You didn't know you need your hydrology degree and geology degree today, did you?
I did not know that. But I can tell you my experience of 37 years of how many years of doing this, I've seen wells fail quite a bit. So, look, it's always particularly how long you've had it. I'd bring a well person in there to take a look at it and see how your flow is. Sometimes you have to set up on them and re-drill them and shock them and not shock them.
I'm going to slide this to you here. We don't have time to get to this one, but this is a damn good one here for you. You might want to send it to Keith here. That particular viewer is asking for DL and anonymity there. It's about a piece of property on Locust Avenue. All right, that's the show. Guys,
We'll look at that on Monday.
I did not get to all the comments today. We just ran out of time. Roger Voisinay says, fantastic show. Thanks to all involved.
Thanks, Roger.
So put it on your calendar. The first Monday of next month, we're going to have Woody in here. We're going to tear into September's numbers and keep on going.
Claire All France, thank you kindly for watching the show. If I didn't
Claire.
get to your comment, I apologize. We are out of time here. Woody Fincham is of Fincham and Associates. Dude is a badass. I mean, he's a rock star here. Fincham and Associates.
Woody, thanks for doing
Gwendolyn
this, man.
says, great, fantastic show. Keith Smith is the badass as well. RealTalkWithKeithSmith.com is the website. RealTalkWithKeithSmith.com. One of the principals of Yes Realty Partners. Judah Wickower. Sounds like we're going to be talking about screen sharing here once the show gets off air. My name is Jerry Miller. The I Love Seville show is up in 56 minutes. Thank you kindly for joining us. So long, everybody.
Tell Smith you can't do it. And then we're done.
Great show. He's going to tell us.